Hello? Thank you for the save file, Lonnie. Okay, the thing is, it's not a nya. It's not a cat. Wait, you redeemed an ASMR. But it's not a nya. It's a wolf. It's an owl. Ooh. It's not a nya. I mean, I get... Yeah. Both my cats are behind me, like... They're just looking at me. They're actually not even looking at me. So they're not supposed to be on my bed anymore. But I secretly let them on. But I pulled out an old, like, another blanket, and it's like one of those super, like, furry, like, blankets, and they're going insane over it. That's a cool dolphin get up. That's not a dolphin get up. Nice calming moments, well needed after last stream. It's a horror story stream though, so I don't know if it's calming. It's supposed to be calming. But will it actually be calming? We don't know. I'm still not going to tell you what I thought that game was called. Nasade! Everybody bonk Nasade. More calming than a giant butterfly. Oh yeah. That was not good. I mean, even though I have a thanks for using the bonk anti-bonk shield, those don't work around here. But yeah, even though I do have like a phobia of butterflies, it is still 100% preferable to the giant tarantula. And like, I think the thing is the butterfly wasn't like aggressively flying around, whereas the tarantula was like, and that was like a little much. Did you know that butterfly breathe from their butt? That is all. Is that true? You hated that tarantula? I know you did, Lonnie. I know you did. Damn near shat myself. No. Okay, I think when it was like moving, we were like at first we were like, oh shit, like there's a giant spider, but then we were like, it disappeared, it's okay. But then we realized we have to bring it back. That was the bad part. And not only did we have to bring it back, when it came back, it was like all up in our face. Oh, by the way, did you notice? I have a tail too. Okay, yeah, the tail physics were a little wonky. Yeah, just pretend the giant spider is Spider-She, and it'll all be okay. The tarantula made you fall. No. Understandable, and I'm sorry for that. We need a content warning for tarantulas. Why would Mama do that to me? Mama, why? Mama just wanted to give you a hug. She said, let me give my baby a quick hug. Kiss both cheeks, you know? The whole thing. I feel like, okay, I was gonna say something and then like my brain just went like boop beep boop 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 boop. Elevator music. Cats are having like a wonderful time. Oh my god, wait, can I turn on the cat cam? Give me a second. Where's my cat cam? Why is it not working? Hello? Okay, I think I got the... I need to open my light. Hold up. Yeah, sorry, the lighting in my room looks really orange on this webcam. But I swear my room is actually pink, not orange. No, Spider-Man, this is what happens when you take the cookies out of the jar. It looks like they're just gonna lick themselves for the next like 10 minutes. Pumpkin lighting. Okay. I'm not trying to body shame him, but Cappuccino is starting to look a little like a pumpkin. You know, I weighed him the other day. He weighs like 5.2 kilos now. That is a lot for a cat that's not even that big. And also when he sits, he likes to tuck up his elbows and he looks like a turkey. Looks so much like a turkey. Okay. No more cat game. I wish I could use the good webcam to show you, but that one is linked to my model, so I could not use it for now. Garfield cosplayer in motion. Either Garfield cosplayer or turkey cosplayer. Actually, he had turkey cat food tonight, so maybe not turkey. Yeah, that's a little... Alright. I found some creepypastas to read. Also, let me know if the audio is too low or too high. I'm sitting too close to the mic. Dead center? Okay, I'll assuming that's a good thing. So, like, today I didn't change the sound for my mic, like the gain volume. So I'm just sitting like really close to it, but normally I up the volume really high, like in the sound settings, and then I sit a little bit further away. And that way it catches like the small sounds, but I don't sit right up close to it. So there should be less popping and S sounds, supposedly. I'm not very good at technology. Let's switch. Oh, here we go. So the first, look at this very good graphic design. Yes. First one is called The Last Halloween, and I think these are like not super scary and not like gross scary, if that makes sense. So hopefully they're still like creepy but enjoyable. Okay, I'm gonna turn off this light. Okay, The Last Halloween, written by William Dalfin. I don't celebrate Halloween. Welcome, Alex. We just started. Oh, fail. You missed the cat cam, but they're just sleeping now. Nothing's happening with the cats. Okay. Back to reading. No, you missed the cat. Okay, you know what? Okay. Well, we do like a 5-second cat cam just for Alex. Where is it? Focusing. Yeah. Appreciate the gesture. Furry Viola. Nah, what the heck? I ain't a furry. Okay, I guess I am tonight. Look, I have a tail even. It's not a cat though. It's not a cat. It's a wolf. Okay, so we're reading. It's a porcupine. No, it's not a porcupine. Why a tail and paws? Cause it's cute. This is my Halloween costume. I'm not afraid. I'm just dressed up for Halloween because the creepypasta we're reading is called The Last Halloween. Okay, we're gonna start for real this time. I don't celebrate Halloween. When the trick-or-treaters come out and start prowling my street, I make sure to keep my front porch light off and pull the shades down. If someone rings my doorbell despite all my precautions, I hide in the bedroom and pray that they don't ring it again. There's always a fear that maybe it's not a child in a Ninja Turtle mask or wearing a sheet over their head. Maybe, just maybe, it's Granny Clark. Granny Clark is the reason I stopped celebrating Halloween. Abigail Clark, known to everyone in Hollisfield as Granny Clark, was the kindest, sweetest old lady in existence. She lived in a little green house at the top of Tamarack Lane, one that bordered a broad expanse of forest. She'd lived there as long as anyone could remember. Someone once told me she was over 100 years old, and nobody within earshot challenged the claim. I absolutely believed them. Juniper Street, the street I lived on, just happened to touch that same forest as Granny Clark's. There was a path that wound through the woods all the way up the hill to her driveway. Many an afternoon was spent playing in those woods, climbing trees, building forts out of sticks, or running down that winding path from Granny Clark's driveway to the end of Juniper Street, pretending wolves were biting at my heels. Oh, that's me, a wolf. Oh my god, my tail. I always felt somewhat unnerved being around Granny Clark. It's an octopus? No, it's not an octopus. Maybe it was the way she walked, all hunched over, her arms bent at the elbows like a tyrannosaurus. Maybe it was her shock white hair that stuck out in all directions. Or maybe it was the way I could see her blood vessels clear as day through her translucent, liver-spotted skin, and the way her fingers seemed unnaturally long and thin. My mother took me to see her once when I was 7. They were coordinating together on an arts and crafts table at the local fair. I remember that her little green house smelled like lavender and mothballs, and the rooms were lined with photos of children. Some of the photos were in black and white, or faded like they had been taken many years ago. "Are these all your kids?" I asked Granny Clark. She smiled and looked around the room. "These are all my lovely babies." Afterward, as my mother and I walked down the path to Juniper Street, hand in hand, I told her how amazing I thought it was that one person could have so many children. She just laughed at me. "They aren't really her kids," she said. "Miss Clark doesn't have any children of her own. Those were photos of other people's kids." "Why does she have photos of other people's kids?" I asked. "Because their parents gave them to her." "Did you give her my photo?" "Not yet." I looked up at my mother with concern. "Please don't." She frowned, but said nothing the rest of the walk home. 5 years later, I got permission to go trick-or-treating with my friend Spencer on Halloween. Spencer lived over on Rosemont Avenue, a street which connected with a number of others, including Tamarack Lane. The neighborhoods over and around Rosemont were considered the best area for trick-or-treating in town, far superior to the neighborhood down around my neck of the woods. Together, we convinced both our parents that we were old enough to go on our own. What do you mean, not yet? I wonder. What I didn't know at the time was that Spencer had other plans. But yeah, the not yet was a little ominous. Oh, what is my tail doing? When my dad dropped me off at Spencer's doorstep in my pirate costume, complete with eye patch, black marker goatee, and stuffed parrot velcroed to my shoulder, Spencer was already outside, sitting on the front stoop. He was going as either a zombie or an accident victim. I never really asked. His clothes were all torn and covered in stage blood, and he'd used some sort of wax to create open sores on his arms and face. I was genuinely impressed with the amount of work he'd put into making himself look grotesque. My tail is going crazy. Once my father's car rolled out of sight, Spencer grabbed me by the arm and hauled me around the side of his house to the garage. "Listen," he said. "You have to help me pull something off. It better not be your pants." "Ha," he gave me a serious look. "Josh dared me to prank old Granny Clark." Josh Gurry was a kid in our grade who Spencer had a habit of butting heads with. They'd had a rivalry ever since Spencer pinned Josh in under a minute during gym class wrestling. Since then, Josh always tried to make Spencer look weak in front of the other kids our age, and Spencer refused to ignore it whenever he did, probably as a matter of pride. Granny Clark? I didn't like the idea of doing anything to anyone, let alone an elderly person. Spencer saw the concern in my eye. "We're not gonna do anything serious." "What were you planning?" "It's simple," Spencer smiled. "You distract her by trick-or-treating at the front door. Just keep her talking. I'm gonna go in the back." "No way," I hissed. "I'm not going to be an accomplice to breaking and entering." "It's not breaking in. She always leaves her back door unlocked." That seemed like an odd thing to know. "Anyway, I'll go in the back, sneak upstairs, and toilet paper her entire bedroom." As if to prove the legitimacy of his plan, Spencer pulled a large roll of bathroom tissue out of his trick-or-treat bag. "What will that prove to Josh? That you can TP some half-blind old lady's house? Are you going to help me or not? Because you can always walk home if you want." We stared at each other through our makeup effects for a few moments before I sighed and gave in. "Promise me we'll do a little bit of trick-or-treating too," I said. "Otherwise my parents will know we were up to something." "Of course. I want candy too. Jeez." With that, we set out. Trying not to seem obvious, we meandered around the neighborhood for a half hour, letting the sun set and waiting for most of the other trick-or-treaters to finish going down Tamarack Lane, trying to reduce the chances of someone spotting us. I got some candy to get started on my alibi in case I was questioned later as to my involvement in scaring an old lady to death. My stomach was very unhappy with me and made it known by clenching up like a fist. I was hot in my pirate costume, but my whole body shook with anxiety. Finally, when the street lights had turned on and all the very small goblins and fairies were carted off back to their homes, Spencer nudged me in the ribs and nodded silently in the direction of the forest. I nodded back and we made a beeline for Tamarack Lane, trying to make small talk to continue looking inconspicuous. When we got to the end of Tamarack Lane, Spencer threw his arm out, stopping me in my tracks. We both stood looking at the little green house at the top of the hill. The porch light was off. "Shit," Spencer hissed. "Well, she's in bed. Abort mission." I started to turn when Spencer grabbed my arm. "Wait, I think I see her moving about in the kitchen." There was someone moving around in the kitchen. I couldn't make out who, just a silhouette pacing around in the back of the house, right near the door Spencer was planning to break in through. Spencer reached into his trick-or-treat bag, fumbling around for a minute before pulling something out and shoving it into my chest. Here, take this. I took what he handed to me and looked down at it. A walkie-talkie? Are you serious? Stick it in your candy bag. Then go ring the doorbell, and if you can't keep her busy, just reach in and click the button on the front twice. I'll hear it and bail. Dude, the porch light is off. Spencer looked at me and I saw the desperation in his eyes. He had to prove himself to Josh in this stupid, juvenile, ridiculous way. And if I didn't help him, it was probably going to do something even dumber. Or worse yet in his mind, go back to school and confess to Josh that he didn't do it. I sighed and dropped the walkie-talkie into my bag. Just go and get it done quick. Granny Clark gives me the creeps. Spencer ducked down low and crept off into the trees and bushes by the side of the road. He was out of my sight in an instant. Though I heard him shuffling around, snapping twigs and cursing as he stumbled through the dark. Once he was gone, I took a deep breath and looked up at the little greenhouse. It seemed bigger and a darker shade of green than it had before, though I knew it was more my mind playing tricks on me than anything real. Through the window, the silhouette, Abigail Granny Clark, shuffled about in her kitchen, occasionally disappearing out of sight around the corner, only to shuffle past in the opposite direction a moment later. I ascended the front porch steps, my right hand sliding into the candy bag to feel the walkie-talkie and make sure it was face up for easy access to the emergency button on the front. My pirate makeup was probably starting to run down my face due to the sudden sweat I'd built up on my forehead. The stuffed parrot on my shoulder felt like it was getting heavier. Somewhere deep inside me, a little voice whispered, "I don't want to be here," over and over again. I felt certain I was going to hurl at any second. "Time to nut up or shut up," I whispered to nobody. Okay, sorry. I've never heard anyone say that before. Time to nut up or shut up. What the heck is that? I hesitated to push the doorbell button. Trembling in fear, my finger hovered there in front of it for a solid minute. Then the walkie-talkie in my bag squawked once, loudly, and I clutched my chest as my heart lurched. Okay, I snarled quietly at Spencer through gritted teeth, knowing he was sending me a signal. I rang the doorbell. The sound of busy work inside the house stopped. I hadn't really been paying attention to the banging and thumping going on inside, but when silence settled over the house, I became horribly aware of the noises that had been going on as I approached. A sliding sound, followed by another thump, then a louder thump. Should I ring the bell again? I thought. Footsteps answered my question. Heavy, slow footsteps coming to the front door. The sound of their approach served to fill my tankard of dread even further. There was hesitation in them, like Granny Clark wasn't sure what to do. Or maybe she was waiting to see if I'd leave. Please don't make me ring the bell again. The porch light came on and I froze. It was like being cast suddenly in a spotlight. There I was, for all to see. Through the small semicircular window in the door, I caught a brief glimpse of someone looking out to see who had rung the bell. I couldn't make out her eyes, just her eyebrows in the darkness. Then the door creaked open, and I was face to face with Abigail Clark. She looked haggard. Her eyes were sunken and hidden in shadow. Her features were even more pale than usual, and her whole face seemed to hang off her skull. She had pulled a shawl over her head, hiding most of her shock white hair. I could only see a few strands hanging down in her face. I swallowed the thump. I swallowed the lump burning in my parched throat. I could barely squeak out the words. Trick or treat? Granny Clark didn't say a word. It's not meow. It's a wolf. It's oh. Both my cats are here though, so they are very meow meow. And thank you for the save file, but I have no file to save on all levels, but physically, Grandma's a wolf. I thought you were gonna say hamster, I'm not gonna lie. Speaking of hamsters, I saw a very disturbing TikTok of a hamster getting its temperature taken today. They had to stick the temperature, like the thermometer, into its bum. Yeah, it was probably very traumatizing for the hamster. Like, that's a thick thermometer and that's a tiny hamster bum. It's the same thing. How's a wolf and hamster the same thing? Did you see hamsters loading their food, like shoving food in their mouth? Thanks for the F, but it was not my hamster, nor my hamster's bum. That's a frog? Okay, I've been called a dolphin, an octopus, a porcupine, and now a frog? No way. Look at this tail. Look at this cute little tail. Does that look like does that look like anything? But my bad, I love how the badger looks. No. Y'all play Genshin? You know Razor? That's my son. I was gonna say that's my brother. But I said that's my son. No. No. Why? I don't know why I didn't get summoned, but I see my bestie is not a catty. What does that mean? I'm a wolf, I'm telling you. Is now a cat? No, it's a wolf, guys. It's a wolf. It's a wolf. Meow. It's not a meow, it's an awoo. It's a rhino. Stop. This is bullying. It's not a hummingbird. Hamster? It's not a hamster either. I'm gonna send you I'm gonna find the hamster with the thermometer up its butt and I'm gonna send it to you. It's not a flying fish. Also, I'm gonna take a washroom break, okay? Give me 1 minute 30 seconds. What save file, man? What save file? Okay, I'm back. It is not. It's not a flying fish. It's not a Wolverine. What? It's not a Wolverine. Not a balding eagle. It's not a T-Rex. Although the hands might look like a T-Rex. It's not an Amogus. The question marks are because I don't know where you guys are getting these animals from. Also, hello Chimi, welcome. Howdy do. A Bummy? What? Where are you guys getting a jaguar? Welcome back to an Imagine Cringe by Hearing, an audiobook of you. Thanks. Howdy do, buckaroo. Autobot. What? Oh? Giraffe? Koala? Okay, you know what? If the ears were rounder and there was no tail and the paws were smaller, I could see koala. Okay, so basically only the color. Only the color. Oh, for those of you that weren't here earlier, we had a cat cam moment. We had 2 cat cam moments. Would you guys like to see the cat cam? They're snuggled up. And it's quite cute. Yes, ma'am. Stampy, you were here for both of them. Okay, let me grab the webcam. Oh. You like animals? Where can I? Oh, there we go. You're very cozy right now. My room is kind of orange. Just ignore that. The cuties cam. Webcam's color looks hella scary. Yeah, because this is my like $20 webcam that I don't even use anymore. But I can't use my good one right now because that's the one that I use for my my like model tracking. It's pumpkin lighting. It's turkey lighting. A phoenix with fire issues. You need to see the best Garfield cosplayer. He's a turkey cosplayer now. I was telling everyone that I weighed him the other day, like yesterday, and he weighs 5.2 kilos. That's over 10 pounds. That's so much over 10 pounds. Anthony Wong, yes, that is Anthony Wong. You heard it here, folks. Anthony Wong. Look at his left butt cheek. Like right there. Look at that butt cheek. But yeah, I don't think it's a horror game lighting, but it is kind of it's a very indie horror game, I guess. Are you cosplaying Catgirl Dead Mod? Isn't he Dead Mod doing Bunny Girl cosplay? Isn't that what it was? Okay, let me go back to normal. Yeah, I don't think he's doing Catgirl, although I'm sure. Oh, what the? My tail's in my mouth. I'm sure if you asked him nicely, he would cosplay a Catgirl for you. First words I saw on your screen were, I swallowed the lump. Okay, but this part though. Time to nut up or shut up. That's my first time hearing of that. Like, what the heck does that mean? Black Jaguar. What in the Among Us? Such a spooky font. That's scary. I think this is like Arial font, I think. He would, but I promised. You're gonna have to ask him personally. You're gonna have to slide into his DMs and be like, "Hey, baby girl, would you dress up as cat girl for me?" I'm correct? Okay. I know my fonts. Did you know that my favorite font used to be Times New Roman? I like the classic type. After I said Wolverine, I'm trying my best not to say. I mean, a Wolverine looks more like a raccoon or like a badger than an actual wolf. Okay, anyways, I swallowed the lump. Okay, I need to drink the water. It's the pause. Okay, are you thinking of Wolverine the animal or Wolverine the Hugh Jackman? The animal, okay. Slightly less weird, I suppose. Back to the creepy story. But also, like, speaking of dressing up, I'm wondering if I should dress up as something for Halloween. Actually, I think I'll do a webcam stream. But you won't see my face. But not Wolverine. Okay, I'm not gonna be a furry. I don't have a fursuit. That's my concern. I don't have a fursuit. I'll be dressed up in like something that looks similar to what my model is wearing, I think. Maybe I should do a tarot reading. This time I was talking about Marvel. I'm also not a huge buff man. Yeah. Not yet. Oh, I don't have a fursuit yet. I don't think I can afford a fursuit. They're like $10,000 for a good one. Just messing? Okay. Sure. Yeah, other than like dressing up as my model, I do want to do another Halloween cosplay. I did like one year I did literally like 10 different cosplays for Halloween. That was pretty intense. I was so productive that year. I did a Morticia from the Addams Family. I did 2 Among Us cosplays. So let's not. Dark past. Everyone has a dark past. I did Thorn from the Hex Girls. From like the Scooby-Doo Hex Girls. And then I also did... What else did I do? I did some other spooky characters, but I don't remember who, and I don't... Can I even scroll back that far right now? How dare you think that way about a princess in a hospital bed with a good leg? No, when will you escape? When will you escape? It's too far back, I can't clip you telling me to slide into his DMs. You can just slide into them. Like, anytime. I mean, it's his DMs, not mine. T-Rex, Viola, when? Imposters. Yeah. Alright, okay. Back to the story. Actually, I might be able to leave tomorrow if the x-rays look good. Yay! That is really good news. I hope the x-rays look good. I swallowed the lump burning in my parched throat. Not confirming anything. Well, we can hope for the best. You do want to leave? I mean, yeah, I wouldn't blame you. The hospital is kind of a miserable place to stay. I could barely squeak out the words, trick or treat? Granny Clark didn't say a word. She just stood there, not moving, staring at me with her dark eyes and a sickly-looking face. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught a glimpse of movement behind her. In the kitchen, and knew Spencer had entered the house. I needed to fill the silence, or he'd be busted for sure. I coughed loudly, then blinked several times, trying to think of something to say. "Miss Clark?" I stammered. I'm sorry if I awoke you." Oh shit, I said we. My mother insisted I stop by and say hello while I'm out trick-or-treating tonight, and I almost forgot. I knew she'd be disappointed if I went home and told her I hadn't paid you a visit, so I was hoping that despite your light being off, you'd... Grandma Clark opened the door further, stepping halfway out onto the porch. As she did so, I noted the heavy brown coat she wore. I also noticed a pair of thick gloves in her hand. She seemed to straighten and turn, reaching behind the door jamb for what I assumed was a bowl of candy. Haven't seen Jurassic World in days. Is that what you're gonna do when you get out? Go see Jurassic World? Try not to make your leg worse. Get back there. Okay, move my tail back. Are you having trouble with the heat in your house, Miss Clark? I could hear myself and it sounded like I was going to cry. Why wasn't she speaking? One gloved hand beckoned me closer. Her breathing sounded labored and ragged, every exhalation gurgling like a diver using a snorkel. The expression on her face never changed. There was no sign of the joy or excitement I had seen every time I'd visited her in the past. She seemed like an entirely different woman, and I felt sensations of discomfort and fear battling each other in my gut. I stepped closer, holding my bag out, when a heavy thump came from the back of the house, followed quickly by a clatter of dishes shattering on the floor. Granny Clark and I both stiffened. Oh shit, I thought. Granny Clark turned her head in the direction of the kitchen, where Spencer seemed determined to make as much noise as he possibly could. It sounded like he had started having a seizure back there and was flopping around on the kitchen tiles, slapping everything in sight. I'm trying so hard not to laugh here. I'm just picturing this kid have like flopping like a fish, like in the kitchen floor. And it lurched out of the pit of my stomach. It felt like my eyes were going to bulge out of their sockets as I tried to think of anything to say to save the situation. My mind blanked with the single word, "Go!" flashing like a neon sign in the center of my brain. Without another word, I turned away to make a hasty retreat. Granny Clark's heavily gloved hand clamped down around my wrist. For being over 100 years old, she had a grip like a lumberjack. She squeezed so tight that my legs turned to gelatin, dropping me to my knees. Granny Clark got that gorilla grip. I'm sorry. My goodie bag hit the ground. Okay. My goodie bag hit the ground with a loud clatter as I grabbed at her hand, crying out in pain. "Miss Clark, you're hurting me." Her other hand behind the door jamb appeared, holding not a bowl but a large box cutter. She extended the blade, looking at me with the same emotionless expression, and pulled me closer to her. The whole moment was so surreal that I just knelt there on the porch as she dragged me toward her, trying to understand what was happening. Why was she holding a box cutter? Where was the candy? What was going on? It was Spencer who saved me. His voice echoed, at once screaming distantly from the kitchen, while also crackling over the airwaves and coming out of the bag at my feet. "Run!" Granny Clark turned again in the direction of the kitchen as she caught sight of Spencer dashing past, throwing open the back door and disappearing into the backyard. In so doing, her grip loosened on my wrist ever so slightly, just enough for me to twist my arm and squeeze through her fingers. She turned back to me, grasping at me with her free hand, while the other one, holding the box cutter, arched back threateningly. Even then, kneeling on the porch, watching the kindest old woman in town come at me, the blade of the box cutter glinting from the streetlights, I tried to rationalize the situation. This wasn't the Granny Clark I knew. I looked up at her, sobbing in panic and trying to find the words to calm her. "Please," I scrambled back a foot. "It was just a joke. I'm sorry." The left half of Granny Clark's face seemed to sag like it was melting. Her eyes looked funny, droopy. The guttural breathing suddenly sounded more like a snarl, feral and angry. She brought the blade down and I instinctively raised my hands to protect myself, screaming in pain as I felt its edge slice through the fabric of my costume and open the flesh of my arm. I did not give her a second chance. My legs that had initially surrendered to gravity now felt the intense burn of adrenaline pumping through them. Looking into myself, I rolled backward, trying to gain my footing, only to end up tumbling down the porch steps instead. Wow, so gore. Okay, it shouldn't be that bad because I think this might be like a children's horror story. White hot pain shot up my left side and I screamed again, but I refused to pause. I was too driven by blind panic. I got to my feet in a hurry as the old woman on the porch straightened up, towering over me like a giant. She tromped towards the steps with a frightening determination. Spencer, eyes wide with terror, came around the corner of the house at full tilt. He surveyed the scenario unfolding on the front porch and a look of confusion washed over him for a second before he grabbed me by the arm and spun me around. "Make for the woods." And with that, he was off like a shot, sprinting to the end of the driveway where the forest began. I ran, hot on his heels, my arm and my head both throbbing. Dizziness and nausea swept over me, and I tripped over my feet, colliding with the side of Granny Clark's car and pausing for the briefest of moments to vomit down the side of it. How had everything gone so wrong? Before I could collect my thoughts, I heard the heavy thud of boots and, looking back, saw Granny Clark's hulking form lurching toward me. Silhouetted by street lamps in her heavy coat with the shawl over her head, she looked massive, like a lumbering horror, hell-bent on my destruction. Nobody's going to believe this. Even I don't believe it, and I'm seeing it, I thought. I shook it off and bolted for the tree line. I knew that if I could just make it to Juniper Street, I'd be safe. The trail was a winding quarter mile, but it was all downhill, and I had enough terror-based energy pumping through my veins to keep me going. I'd run that path for years and knew every gnarled root that might trip me up, every change in the angle of the descent, every curve to avoid a tree in the dark. Just get home. The moon was out, and it filtered through the branches, making beams in the dust kicked up by Spencer before me. It highlighted the path and cast the forest in a creepy blue hue. Everything around me seemed to glow. If I hadn't been running for my life, I might have stopped to take it in. The adrenaline coursing through me made time slow to a crawl. Every footfall felt like I was slogging through thick mud. I've never been as perfectly attuned to my senses as I was sprinting through the forest that Halloween. I could hear everything around me, my breath coming out slow and focused, my heart thumping in my ears, the snapping of branches further down the path as Spencer, less familiar with the way, ran ahead, and the heavy clumping of someone coming down the trail behind me. I turned to look. I did it, knowing all the stories of people being told not to look back and all the bad things that happened to them when they did. I did it, not wanting to really see what it was because I knew. I did it, and all my hopes of making it home disappeared in a flurry of wings like a flock of startled pigeons. Granny Clark was right behind me, thundering down the trail like a rampaging elephant. She was a good 20 paces back, but I could see her perfectly in every sliver of moonlight we both ran through. The most frightening thing about her was the look on her face. It wasn't one of anger, or even of determination. In fact, there was no expression whatsoever. Her eyes were dead. Her mouth seemed to hang open. The left half of her face still sloughed down like melting candle wax. And then the wind whipped her shawl off, and her face went with it. It just slid off as easily as a Halloween mask, disappearing somewhere on the trail behind her as she closed in on me, as determined and frightening as ever. Where her face had been, there was blood. Just blood everywhere. But I could finally see her eyes through it all, and they stared at me with a terrible rage and madness like I had never seen before. I thought I was going insane. She bore down on me, the sight of her hate-filled, bloody face burning forever into my mind. Her hands reached out, trying to grab me and guide me to hell, but all I could focus on was that scarlet face, the true fury within her finally revealed. Guess how I just burned my feet with some oil. What did you do? It's not bad, but I put my feet in cold water, so I'm okay. How did you get hot oil on your feet? Oh, like, were you cooking? Is that how? I kind of pictured, like, the bottom of your feet. Just, like, dipping into oil or something. It's cooking some empanadas. And it splashed? Yeah, cooking. That's way more reasonable than, like, stepping in the oil. I don't know why I thought of that. Splashed? I see. I hope it's okay. You should put some ointment on it after dipping it in cold water. And now we have two people with injured feet / legs. This is so unfortunate. There was a sharp turn in the path and I slowed for only a fraction of a second to make it. Granny Clark was not as familiar with the trail, her momentum driving her straight on. Her fingers licked past the back of my head and wrapped around the stuffed parrot on my shoulder. She tore it off just as she barreled headlong into the trees behind me, crashing to a stop with a violent abruptness. She can have the parrot, I thought. She can have the parrot. Who's the other victim? The other victim is Stampy. Stampy's had a broken leg for the past, like, week? 2 weeks? Week and a half? It's been a while. When I burst out of the woods and onto the tarmac of Juniper Street, I was moving like all of hell was on my heels. Ahead, I saw Spencer slowing down, trying to catch his breath as he reached the driveway to my house. Somewhere along the way, he had lost his own trick-or-treat bag, and most of his makeup had run off. "Don't stop," I screamed at him. He turned, seeing me hurtling down the road, and hurried up to the front door, banging on it and shouting. I dashed up the front sidewalk, shoving him aside and throwing my shoulder into the door. Having just enough sense to turn the knob and open it, we fell over each other on the landing and Spencer kicked futilely, trying to close the door behind him. I climbed over him and slammed it shut before deadbolting it and leaning my full weight against it. I broke down into tears while clutching my arm. Jesus Christ, Spencer yelled. We both started shouting over each other, neither one listening to the other, until my mom and dad, hearing the commotion, ran in from the living room to find us yelling and bloody. They looked us over with mild annoyance until my mom saw my shirt soaked red with blood and her eyes bugged out. What the hell happened? She yelled at us. I sobbed, my mind retraced through everything that I had just witnessed. Her face, they took her face, it came right off. Both my parents looked equal parts concerned and utterly perplexed. I could tell they thought we had just spooked ourselves and gotten hurt running away. I waved my hands at Spencer to silence him, then told them everything. As my story unfolded, their expressions wavered between doubt, anger, and concern. Honestly, telling them that Granny Clark attacked me with a knife and then chased me through the woods before her face peeled off, I had a hard time believing it myself. When I finished, Spencer told his side. When I went in through the back door, I could see Will and what I thought was Granny Clark at the front door. I tried to creep around to the stairs, but I tripped over a pair of legs. Miss Clark's legs. She was lying in the food pantry. I'd never seen Spencer cry before, but his eyes welled up with tears as he continued. Her face was missing. I could see all the stuff underneath. They had pulled it all right off, just like peeling an orange. Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, they took her face. My mom disappeared into the kitchen where I could hear her using the phone to call the police. My father stood there, shaking his head at disbelief at us. Spencer and I locked eyes. That wasn't her, Spencer's voice cracked. I realized it wasn't her on the porch and I told you to run. I'm so sorry. I hugged him, forgetting the pain in my arm for a moment as he balled his fists up in my shirt and buried his face in my chest, adding his tears to the blood and sweat I was thoroughly soaked in. When the police got to Abigail Clark's house, they found her just as Spencer had described. Her throat had been slit, and all the flesh on her face had been removed. In the woods, they found the remains of her face, cut from ear to ear and worn like a mask. They also found my stuffed parrot lying in the leaves by a blood-covered tree at the turn that had saved me. One of the branches on the tree was snapped and dripping with the blood. Even more was found where the path opened out onto Juniper Street, but after that, the trail went cold. They found the killer a day later, an unemployed carpenter from 2 towns over with a history of violence. He checked into the hospital with a gouged out eye, claiming he had accidentally impaled himself while hanging a picture. Apparently, his blood work came back with 2 different types on him, one of which was identified as Abigail Clark's. Thankfully, he confessed, saving the police from having to ask Spencer or I if we could identify him. Neither of us would have been able to, and neither of us ever wanted to ever see him again. I do see him, though, regularly, whenever the scar on my arm flares up and my dreams turn to running down that moonlit trail in the woods, with him just 10 steps behind me. Of course, the face I see isn't his. It's always Granny Clark's face, devoid of emotion, at every step, filled with anger, determined to catch me and put me in the ground. Granny Clark, the most beloved person Hollisfield has ever known, is the monster that haunts my worst nightmares. Oh, that was a good creepypasta. Wait, since April? Yeah, holy shit, that's a long time. I guess I only know, like, when I said, like, 2 weeks, it was more like I've only known about it for 2 weeks, but holy crap, since April. Fell off a 2nd floor at a friend's house. Thankfully it was only my leg, but it's been a nightmare. If you're like this since April, then it was not a clean fracture. Part of the reason is because I made it worse in June when Jurassic World Dominion came out. You remember Stampy mentioning it? 8 times. Honestly, she stepped in and actually stopped me, thankfully. Yeah, no. I think, okay, hear me out. Hear me out. stop going to Jurassic Park screenings until your leg heals. There's just, no offense, but there's just something about that movie that has a grudge against you and your broken leg. It's a good movie. I'm sure it's a good movie. I love me some Jurassic Park movies. I love dinosaur movies. That movie, it ain't good for your leg. If there's no more screenings, oh thank God. Thank God. You need a break. You need to catch a break. That was the last movie. Okay. Buy the Blu-ray if you need to. Buy the DVD. Watch it at home from the safety of your couch. No more moving around until that leg heals. Okay? I don't want you to get hurt anymore. One reason I did that. No more putting your leg through any more pain. All right? Okay, I'm gonna take a, okay. This is my plan. I'm gonna put on an ad break right now. No promises? What do you mean no promises? I'm gonna put on an ad break right now so that we can have an uninterrupted session for the next creepypasta, okay? And if you have perhaps a little something that can allow you to see my stream through the ads, I'll just be sitting here talking. I can type in the chat so that, we're all still just hanging out, but yeah, just wanted to explain. Honestly, I wish I didn't have to do this. Like, unfortunately, which thinks that this will improve the stream. Okay. Starting the ad break. No mystery leg injuries, please. Honestly, sitting here so long has given me like back pain. Ugh. My throat really needs a break. I'm gonna drink all the water I can. But what is going on here? Why did I get so many pings? Huh? What is this? I'm just drinking plain water today. Oh my god, my cats are licking each other. They're like hugging each other and licking each other. It's so cute. my god, I have to take a photo of this. They're like all snuggled up. I have to show you guys. Oh my god. Okay, let me send this to myself. Where is my channel? Why was I summoned about a cat girl cosplay? Disturbing my essay writing time. Wait. Hold on. Where did you get... Did Earl post it? Everyone's been missing you, Deadmod. But, more importantly, look at this. Look at this. Look at this. This is what... Look how cute they are. This is how my... Oh, that's too big. This is how my cats are sleeping right now. Oh, they're so cute. They're so cute. Right? They're so cute. We can go insane. How's this month been for you? Wait, you have midterms right now? Is that why you're so busy? Yeah. Good luck on your midterms. I wish you good luck. I'm one minor inconvenience away from unliving. Oh. Oh. You wanna hang out on Saturday? You have time to hang out? You know, take your time off the essays by hanging out. I think Lonnie already posted about it. The person who lives close to you asked to shoot on Saturday. Okay, but we're going to a pumpkin patch and a corn maze. So... Aren't you busy with midterms? You already agree. SMH. You should be working on your midterms. This is the week of midterms. Next week is reading week. The Saturday is free. Missed an FF. Missed an F. Your keyboard is being stupid. Reasons why I watched it. It was summer and it gave me a way to escape the heat. Last movie of the franchise that we know of. I want to get the most of it while it's in theaters. It was a very good movie and I was on a hot streak. And I wanted to see how many times I could watch it. Okay, don't worry about the long message. However, I really hope you stay safe and keep yourself safe before your legs heal, okay? She grounded you from the movie, as she should. Get it? As she should. Using letters and adding them elsewhere. Some age, you just don't want to hang out with us. Okay, I switch over. No more kitty cat, unfortunately. Let's switch over to another one, maybe? I had 3 planned, but don't actually know if I'll get to all of them. Like, this one was supposed to be 16 minutes. It took me a full hour to read it. Took me a full freaking hour. Possibly because we were distracted multiple times. Now I'm in a hospital while my DVD of it is at home. Okay, you get to watch it when you get home. Otherwise, stay safe, okay? Promise I'll try my best not to do anything else to make you worry and actually rest it up the best I can. Good. That's a good dino. Okay. This one is called One Last Trick or Treat. It's that time of the year again. I know how I'm going to be spending Halloween, same way I have for the past 2 years. Slowly nursing a beer in the bar, watching the glass sweat on that smooth wooden counter, staring at it till it goes warm in my hand. I'm not there to get drunk, I'm there to escape. I never want to be alone at home over Halloween night again. I promised the deputy that I wouldn't talk about that night. The town didn't need it. Hell, I even deleted the video. But now, with Halloween around the corner, it all comes back. Well, small town law enforcement doesn't care too much about the internet. I live in a small house at the end of the lane. Another nondescript house down a row of its sisters, prefabricated mostly. Far enough off the beaten path to be cheap, not so far as to be rural. Close, pretty damn close. I didn't expect many kids to call around trick-or-treating from Halloween. It's a long road, and most children manage to fill their baskets long before they get to my place. Besides, I quite like the peace and quiet. Halloween used to be a good night to settle down and catch some of the classic horror movies on TV. I kept a couple of bags of candy around just in case some kids actually made it all the way down the lane, but mostly it would be an evening all to myself. Have fun with your stories. I'm going back to my essay. Okay, I'll see you later, Dead Mind. I'll harass you in DMs later. Read manhwas with the spicy ones? No. I'm a princess to them, not, oh, you're doing what I did in your costume. Well played. And stay in bed. Doing my best too, Alex. It's just super painful to get up to use the restroom and stuff. I broke my arm about, holy crap, 20 years ago? Oh shit, I'm old. And it was like really annoying to have to get up out of the bed, and it wasn't even a broken leg. It was a broken arm. So I can only imagine how bothersome it might be. I can't quite remember what I was watching that night. Probably because I'd been enjoying an after-dinner beer and I may have gotten carried away. dozing off after one too many. I woke with a start. My beer had gone warm on the side table, my hand still curled around the can. I winced as I unwrapped my fingers. Something had woken me up. The TV droned on in the background, the senseless drivel of late-night programming flickering across the room. Maybe it was just some high school kids out after some Halloween party, out on the streets, making some noise that woke me up. I checked the time, past midnight. I was glad that I had invested in a little security for my home. Just the basics, really. A good camera to cover my front lawn, motion-activated lights around the front and back. I was trying to make the tough decision of whether to clear up the mess right there and then, or to just kick the can down the road till the next morning when a loud rapping at the door shattered the silence. The can bounced off the floor, warm beer spraying across the bottom of my track pants. The shock left me too numb even to swear. I had just set the can back upright when the knocking sounded again. The arrhythmic rap increasingly impatient, the tempo building up as I stepped towards the door. I peered around the edge of the window. I saw nothing but my pale face in the glass. It was pitch dark outside. Why wasn't the light working? The knocking stopped. When I broke my wrist, I could bathe. I used a plastic bag that protected on my right arm so I won't get wet. I did the same thing when I broke my wrist. Except it was my left wrist. A tree branch, perhaps, or something else tapping on the porch. The peephole glared at me, that little glass orb suddenly bulging with some half-promised horror. I swallowed, or I tried. My throat was dry, the warm beer on the floor suddenly inviting. "It's nothing," I said out loud, hoping that the familiar echo of my voice off the walls would ground me somehow. I walked up to the door and peered out, only seeing the orange cones cast by the halogen street lights a distance away. Nothing. I thought to myself, feeling childishly stupid. I sucked in a deep breath, feeling my lungs strain, then let the air stream out slowly. Then, another knock. I turned back around to face the door. My heart punched at the inside of my chest, its crazed dance playing counterpoint to the knocking. I was surprised to see the word counterpoint here. Never seen it outside of my music textbooks. Can get a waterproofed cast. The cast I used was one of those like paper mache looking ones. Not paper mache, but it's like that like cement cast, if you know what I mean. Like the plaster, sorry, not cement, what the heck. I wasn't surprised to see my hand shake as I reached for the doorknob. Our town was a safe one, far from troubles of the big cities, or so we'd read in the papers. We had little more to fear in the night than seeing our trash strewn across the yard by the nimble fingers of raccoons. I threw the door open. The porch lights winked on, suddenly blinding me. I blinked away the white spots from my vision. A pair of children stood on my porch. They must have been 9 or 10. I couldn't see much more off them because they were in the classic Halloween getup, a simple sheet draped over each of them, a pair of holes cut out for them to see through. A pair of small baskets for candy broke the smooth lines of the sheets. The toes of brand new dress shoes peeked out from under the sheets. A boy and a girl, I thought. Trick or treat. Such a common refrain. I'd expected the words, but not the delivery. There were but 2 figures in front of me, yet their voices seemed to come from a great distance away. Trick or treat. The pair spoke again. I felt a little discomfited at the distortion in their voices. More than the weird volume, their voices seemed to blend into each other's, with some strange harmonics at play at the edges. It seemed almost as though there were a choir of 2, just there speaking to me. treat, I guess, I said. More than anything, I wanted those two away from my house. The whole situation felt wrong, the familiar veneer of the season concealing something deeper. Something rotten, like that small panic when biting into a fruit and feeling that lack of resistance, your teeth sinking into soft mush instead of sweet flesh. For a moment, I blamed the haze of alcohol, the dregs of sleep clouding my judgment, but adrenaline had swept those far away. My fear was true. I turned to the counter where I kept my keys and grabbed for the bag of candy I had prepared for the occasion. I was half hoping that the two figures would be gone when I returned to the door, that they'd been a figment of my imagination, perhaps a shadow of some dream brought on by cheap horror movies and cold pizza. I had no such luck. The pair hadn't moved an inch. They each raised their baskets. There was already an assortment of candy there. They'd had a good day. It's just a month ahead. No need. It's been like 3 years. A bit late for you guys to be out, isn't it? Where are your parents? The only answer I got was an impatient shaking of the baskets, the rasp of candy wrappers rustling. I held out a handful of candy, ready to drop it and call it a night. I expected to see a small pale hand clutching at the handle of the basket. Instead, I saw the anemic matte sheen of plastic. The basket was draped off the plastic hand of some kind of store mannequin. I was more than thoroughly creeped out by this effective little trick. I shrugged. Maybe the voices were recorded, a little technology to bolster an otherwise traditional costume. I felt the fear melting away as I explained it to myself in my head. Just some clever little children, probably with the help of an adult. Smart, I thought. It had certainly got me going for a while. The bright side is that I didn't break anything else, or my arm instead, because I need my arms way more than my leg. Oh god, trauma, yeah. It's a good thing you only broke your leg, in quotations. Stay safe, I told them, dropping the last of the candy into the baskets. They didn't acknowledge me, they just stood still on the worn wooden boards of my porch. I shut the door on them. The window darkened as the light on the porch shut off. Odd, maybe the motion detection stopped working. Some unbidden instinct told me to stay there and wait. I heard the unmistakable sound of footsteps on the porch as the two walked off. Still, the light stayed dark. My relief grew as the odd strangers left my property. Still, something didn't sit right. Something wasn't right. The light was working. It turned on when it detected me. It saw me. It didn't see the kids. The sensor was working. It was state-of-the-art. Passive infrared. Detected motion by detecting changes in temperature. Like a human body. Like mine, but not the kids. Whatever was under those pristine white sheets wasn't warm at all. The realization washed over me like an ice cube running down my spine. My breath came in short rasps. I had to see. I had to know. I could barely bring my hand to the curtains. They were shaking so bad. When I pinched the edge of the curtain between my thumb and my finger, the curtain began to undulate wildly. I filled my lungs and peered out through the glass. They were still there. Barely 20 yards away, doing nothing, just standing there motionless, facing the street. As I watched, they both swiveled their heads in perfect tandem to affix 2 pairs of fathomless eye holes on the window. There was no way they could have seen me come to the window. I had to put the back of my hand in my mouth and bite down hard to keep from calling out. They knew. They knew I was there. I backed away from the window, dragging my leaden feet over the carpeted floor. I barely noticed when my heel knocked the can back. The beer leaked out onto the carpet, leaving a widening patch in front of me. I couldn't believe the raw animal fear those two had summoned up in me. Every instinct I had told me to run. Run. Get help. Anything but stay and be trapped in my own house. What could I do? Call the police and tell them that I was scared of two little children trick-or-treating? Call one of my friends past midnight and ask them to come over like a little boy crawling to his parents' room after a nightmare? The situation was ridiculous. My mind told me so. That there had to be a rational explanation for everything, but I could not explain away the light, fluttery feeling in my stomach. I could not rationalize the prickly lump at the back of my throat. They'd only said 3 words to me in those unearthly tones. Who knew how cold those lips were? I shut the door to the kitchen, the sound echoing through the empty house. I turned my chair to face the front door, and then I waited, white-knuckled, for the dawn to come. I must have fallen asleep sometime during that long, cold wait, not daring to move from my chair, paralyzed with fear that one of those shrouded children would appear at my window, or worse yet, behind me. But even that manic store of energy wore out as the night wound to a close. I was woken up by a polite knock on the front door. I sat bolt upright, nearly falling off my chair. I stumbled to the door, a hint of the dread from a few hours ago still lingering like a stale funk in the air. I checked the peephole again. This time, I was confronted with the well-scrubbed face of one of our town deputies. We'd been to school together. It was that kind of smallish town where you'd know almost everybody your age if they had a history there. He was an earnest man, tough but fair. "Good morning, officer." "Good morning," he replied. The sour look on his face told me that it was anything but that. His nose twitched as he took in the stale, sour smell of beer steaming off the floor in the morning sun. "Had a good night last night?" I thought back to the night before. No, I didn't. The lawman was quick to see the fleeting shadow of doubt wash across my face. He pressed home his advantage. "You care to explain why you stole the 2 mannequins from the store, dressed them up, and put them on your lawn?" He shifted to the side past his door, and past his door-filling bulk I saw 2 familiar shapes on my lawn. My lungs wouldn't fill with air. They were still there. He'd been there the whole time. "You okay, buddy?" The big man leaned in, blocking my view, and steadied my shoulder with one of his strong hands. I brushed his hand off and lurched out into the yard, mindless of the freezing dew on my bare feet. The pair stood there, the draped sheets joining in between them. They were holding hands. The 2 of them were holding hands. I brought my palm down gingerly on the head of the one nearer to me. Hard. I felt hard plastic. I whipped the sheet off with one smooth motion. I gave a strangled cry as I stared into the empty green eyes of a child mannequin. I backed away, too quick. I ended up on my ass on the cold grass, clawing and scrambling backwards until I bumped into the solid legs of the deputy behind me. He'd been quick to recognize my unease earlier. He was just as quick to realize genuine fear. He hoisted me back to my feet and helped me back into my house. Mind telling me what that was all about? He dumped me on the office chair in front of my computer. I tried, but I couldn't force the words out. The deputy sighed and settled onto my couch, wrinkling his nose at the empty beer cans on the side table. He leaned forward. First call of the morning after Halloween, and I'm chasing down some bullshit break-in to a store in the middle of town. Now I've got you hungover and scared shitless from a damn pair of dolls on your front yard. What I know is someone got into a store, smashed up the glass, stole sheets and a couple of mannequins. Bloody kids again. Except the glass. The lines on his brow deepened. I watched his Adam's apple bob up and down. The glass was on the outside of the shop only. Damnedest thing. You've got a camera on your yard, don't you? I nodded numbly. What say you give me another 10 minutes of your time, tops? We go through that footage. I see who put those things on your lawn, and then I'll be out of your life, hopefully for good. I turned to face my computer and called up the stored videos on my hard drive. They were all transferred by Wi-Fi. Convenient for the time that I bought the cameras. Just put on double speed backwards. We'll see who set them there soon enough. I hit the reverse play key and upped the speed. I saw the two of us scuttle from the house to the lawn and back again. Then the first rays of the sun retreating from the grass, pulling back over the pair of figures until they were back in darkness. The two of them stood there, motionless for the longest time. When the two figures moved, all by themselves, in a jerky, swaying motion, back from my lawn to my front door, the cursor danced a little jig in the corner of the screen as the shakes returned, stronger than before. The sharp hiss behind me told me I wasn't alone in my discomfort. I shuddered as I watched myself on screen, so close to the two abominations, giving them a handful of candy each. I slowed the recording back to normal speed. On screen, I saw myself turn back into the house to retrieve the candy. The two figures stood there, impassive. As one, they both fixed those dark eye holes on the sheets on the camera. There was something else unmistakable. There was a slight pulse in the sheets, a small undulation. The mannequins were breathing. I've seen enough. I turned to look at the deputy, his face as white as the sheets on the shrouded figures on the screen, his hand tight around the grip of his sidearm. That, of all things, scared me the most. A symbol of law and order, who had seen the worst of what our little community had to offer, just as scared as I was and ready to pull a gun in my house. I clicked the window shut and got up. I wandered over to my cabinet. I pulled out a pair of tumblers and a bottle of the good stuff. The bottle gave a couple of contented glugs as I sloshed the rich golden whiskey into the glass. I set one down in front of the other man and took a sip from my glass. A lawman could lose his job drinking on duty. The deputy didn't hesitate when he emptied half the glass. He didn't look at me when he spoke. My old Nan wasn't from around here. She was back from the old country across the sea. She hated Halloween. Said there were things out there that night that weren't meant to see the light of day. One night a year, she told me, for one single night, some things were set loose. The candy and costumes were a new thing. Back in the past, on All Hallows Eve, good folk crossed themselves and prayed and stayed in. Whatever's on that recording, it's not what our town needs, you understand? Dumb high school kid, I said, the lie taking shape and form in my mouth, fooling around. The lie fleshed out, took on a veneer of credibility. That would be the explanation. No one had to know the dark kernel of that story. And your camera. It was having technical difficulties that night. Never was a good piece of equipment. Regretted buying it the same week. He stuck out his hand and we shook on it, and I have kept my word to now. There isn't a good reason why I broke my promise. I'd never known true fear till that night, but I replay it in my head over and over. The recording is long gone, of course, but every detail of that night has been branded on my mind. I remember the fear, but I cannot think of a single action the two of them had done to threaten me. Eerie, unnatural, but without a drop of malice. It'll be Halloween soon. I know where I'll be on that dark night. Some things roam the streets that shouldn't be there. The masks and costumes aren't always for the children. Sometimes they're there for the adults, for our own protection. After the deputy left, I watched the video forwards just once. I remember seeing the two figures on my lawn slowly inching their hands up, locking them under the sheets and waiting for the sun to rise. Things that shouldn't be out on this good earth. But sometimes, just sometimes, they just want the simple things, like one last trick or treat. Okay, why do I feel like that was actually kind of cute? Like, it's the way they, like, you know, it's just a couple of dead kids maybe who just wanted to trick or treat one last time. Kind of sad, but like kind of sweet. Like they went together, you know? Okay, this one is gonna be the last one of the night. And it's called A Cat in the Dark. So apparently this one is like a little bit sad, but we'll see how it goes. This is a story about an old Welsh witch. It was All Hallows Day, the 1st of November 1974, when the people of my village awoke to find that my house had burnt down. My parents' charred bodies were found and identified, but the investigators were unable to find and identify my remains, and therefore I was classified as a missing person. In addition to the official investigation by the authorities, the village in which I lived organized a search party for me, but there were no traces of my presence anywhere. The front room was the source of the fire. The fire was ruled to be an accident. There were no credible persons of interest for possible kidnapping. It was as if I had vanished. Most of the village lost hope for me after the first week passed, with no news regarding my whereabouts. No one knew what had happened to me in the house fire. You must be wondering, if she's writing to us now, how is she missing? The answer to that question is a complicated one. To understand it, I have to tell my story to you, which begins 45 years ago. Although I was declared legally dead 7 years after my disappearance, I felt dead for years before that. My father was laid off from his job in late 1973, and he had taken to the drink as a means to cope. Alcohol was the fuel for the fire that was his anger. It would enkindle his wrath against me in particular. I was spanked as a child, but the occasional smack on the bum evolved into an almost daily routine of being beaten by Dad. Mom knew about the abuse, but she did nothing to stop it from happening. Oh my. I'll spank. Okay, this is a serious story. It's a serious and tragic story, I think. It's called A Cat in the Dark. Not the wow. Mom knew about the abuse, but she did nothing to stop it from happening. She was more concerned with the public image of the family than for my welfare. I was regularly subjected to physical, emotional, and verbal abuse by my father and mother. I did not know why I was the subject of their abuse. As an adolescent girl, I believed that the abuse inflicted on me was my fault. Why else would both of my parents hate me unless it was somehow my fault? I was a 14-year-old girl living with my parents in Catbrook, Monmouthshire, Wales. It was the last day of school before the autumn half-term break when Michael Rees approached me at lunch. I would occasionally dream about a life outside of my abusive home in which I was a wife and mother, loved and loving. My dreams were a sunbeam in the overcast sky of my life. I had a crush on Michael, but I was not allowed to date at my age. I wished that I could do things that other girls can do. He asked me if I would like to go to a party on Halloween. I told him that I would have to ask permission from my parents, but that I would like to go with him. In my heart, I knew that I would not be able to attend the party with him, but there remained a flame of hope within me. Dream on, silly dreamer. Hold on, when does this take place again? Oh, 1974. For some reason, I read it as 1874, and I was like, they had Halloween parties in 1874? When I returned home from school, I prepared to ask Mom if I could go to the party. She was not home from work. As I turned around, I walked into Dad, who was standing in the doorway of the kitchen. "What are you doing?" Dad asked. "I was looking for Mom," I answered. "Is she still at work?" "No," Dad answered. "She went to the grocer's." "Why?" He slurred his words as he spoke to me. "I wanted to ask permission to go to a party with Michael Reese." "Why wouldn't you ask me?" "I didn't want to bother you." I stepped backward as he stepped forward, and he asked, "Why would that bother me?" Thanks for the purple heart. "I don't know," I stammered. As I attempted to step backward, Dad grabbed me by the shoulders and he shook me. "Please stop." "You're a woman now," Dad said, "aren't you?" Where is this going? I'm gonna content warning because I don't know. I haven't read the story yet and I don't know how fucked up it gets. So if you get queasy about any type of mature subject matter, I would recommend stepping away for the potential next 30 minutes or so. He shook me and then he threw me onto the kitchen floor. I attempted to stand up, but he pulled me up by my hair. "You're not going to that party," Dad said. "Go to your room." After he released my hair from his grip, I ran out of the house and I hopped on my bicycle. I cried as I rode away from Dad, who was calling me from the front door. I began to ride in the direction of Monmouth. It was during my ride that I discovered her. She was abandoned in the fields of Lydart, a hamlet between Catbrook and Monmouth. Who knew how many days she had endured without food and water? People can be so cruel. I placed her in my basket as I rode home. When I arrived home, I walked into the house and I saw that Mom and Dad were sitting in the front room. Before I was able to say anything, Mom asked, "Where did you go?" "I was riding my bicycle," I answered. After a brief pause, Mom said, "Your father and I have reached a decision, Sarah. You are not going to that party. It is best for you to stay home." Imagine taking out the spooky mood with some city pop music. I mean, this is like spooky lo-fi music, whatever that means. Is it too loud? I can turn the music lower a bit. I felt another piece of my heart break with her words, but I cannot say that they were unexpected. However, I focused my attention on what I found rather than my disappointment. I introduced my find to my parents, whose eyes widened in surprise. "Where did you find her?" "Lydart." "Why did you bring her back here?" "May I keep her?" With the tisk of her tongue, Mum said, "Are you prepared to be responsible for her?" "Yes, Mom," I answered. "She will be my pet." Although Dad mumbled expletives, Mum reluctantly gave me permission to keep her. The cat that I held in my arms meowed, and I set her down on the floor so that I could prepare a dinner of tuna fish for her. "I will have to buy proper food for you tomorrow, Princess," I said. After I mulled it over, I decided that her adopted name would be Princess. No party. As she ate her food, I petted her black fur, and I said softly, "My princess." As I prepared for bed that night, I heard Dad shouting in the front room. I walked downstairs and I saw that the family portrait that was hung over the mantel was crooked. Dad attempted to realign the picture frame, but it returned to its crooked position. Before Dad was able to recompose himself, the picture suddenly flew off of the wall into his face. The glass shattered, and Dad shouted in pain. Thanks for the purple heart. I screamed and Mom went to Dad to administer to his wounds. What's going on? I flinched as Princess rubbed herself against my legs. I was looking down at her when Mom instructed me, "Bring me a package of bandages." What? "Bring me a package of bandages, Sarah," Mom repeated. After I retrieved the package of bandages from the loo, I gave them to Mom and I was sent to my room. How could a picture fly off the wall like that? As I mulled it over, I delicately took off my school uniform and put on my white nightdress. I noticed that Princess was watching me intently. I gave her a pat on the head absent-mindedly, and then I laid down in bed. Princess jumped up on the bed and she curled herself up at my feet. She purred as she slept, and I was soon lulled to sleep myself. On the following day, I bicycled to Monmouth to buy supplies for Princess: food, a litter box with litter, toys, and a collar with a bell attached to it. Side note, collars with bells on them are not good for pets because they basically have like a really loud ringing sound in like right near their ear. I spent the entirety of the meager allowance that my parents gave me. When I returned home, I readied the house for Princess. I put her food in the pantry, her little litter box in the loo, and her toys in my bedroom. I held her in my lap as I placed a collar around my neck. Around her neck. After I readied the house for Princess, I did my household chores. While Dad slept in his recliner, his face bandaged, I gathered the empty bottles that surrounded him. One of the bottles dropped out of my hand and is shattered on the kitchen floor. Oh no. Dad woke up and he stomped into the kitchen. He had taken off his belt, and he smacked me in the face with it before he grabbed me, and he held me across his knees as he belted me. I attempted to escape from his grip, but he smacked me in the face again before he continued to mete out my punishment. After I was punished, Dad watched me as I cleaned up the broken bottle. He returned to his alcoholic stupor with another bottle while I finished the rest of my chores, and I limped back to my bedroom, where I sat on my bed. Thank you so much for the hydrate. I do need it. We are reading another creepy story. This one's called Cat in the Dark, and it's got some darker themes. So just a heads up to everyone watching that if you are not comfortable with things like that, feel free to tap out. Okay. Princess had followed me, and he jumped up on my bed. As I laid down, I held her close, and I fell asleep. When I awoke in the morning, Mom urged me out of bed to prepare for Mass. We attended the Holy Sacrifice of the Mass each Sunday at St. Mary's Roman Catholic Church in Monmouth. "Follow me," Mom said, and I followed her to my parents' bedroom. She sat me down at her vanity stand. Before I was able to say anything, Mom asked, "Would you like for me to do your makeup?" I was momentarily confused, but I answered yes after I looked at myself in the mirror. I winced as Mom applied powder to my face with her powder puff, and thereafter she applied rouge. My cheeks still felt tender to the touch, but Mom was as gentle as she could be. She finished doing my makeup with an application of pink lipstick. "Do I look okay?" I asked. "Yes," Mom answered. "What are you going to wear?" "I don't know," I trailed off. We returned to my bedroom, and Mom went through my wardrobe. She retrieved a blue jumper and a white dress from the wardrobe, laying them on the bed. Before she left me to dress, she said emphatically, "Wear the jumper." As I dressed for Mass, I heard voices from downstairs. "What did you think you were doing?" Mom asked. "She needed to learn how to be more careful," Dad answered. "What will the people at church think?" Mom asked. "She has to wear makeup." I could not hear the rest of the conversation, but Mom and Dad raised their voices before Mom called for me. In a hurry, I put on my white mantilla and I went to Mass with my parents. After we returned home from Mass, I fed Princess her first meal of the day. Wait, you're feeding her cat so late in the day? I was escorted upstairs by Mom, who removed my makeup with her cold cream. As Mom said, we mustn't show our flaws. After she removed my makeup, she sent me to my room. I decided to listen to one of my records, Eagles, by the Eagles. I would listen to music as often as I could to take away my pain and relieve my suffering. The music would drown out my depressive thoughts, and the lyrics would take me to a world where my father and mother and my depression could no longer do me harm. Raven hair and ruby lips, sparks fly from her fingertips, echoed voices in the night. She's a restless spirit on an endless flight. Princess entered the room as I listened to Witchy Woman, and she jumped up on my bed. She curled herself up on my pillows as I sat on the floor, and she lay there as I played the song Nightingale. I picked her up and I danced with her in my arms. Wait a minute, here comes my baby, singing like a nightingale, coming my way down along that devastation trail. Well, let the fires burn and let the floods return, we will prevail. As the song ended, Dad appeared in my doorway and I turned off the record player. I set Princess down on the floor and she stood by my feet. What are you doing? Dad asked. I was liquoring? What the fuck? I was listening to my records, I answered. I'm sorry. No noise, Dad said. After he reprimanded me, Dad walked downstairs. We ate dinner in the dining room, and I fed Princess her third and final meal of the day. I finished my dinner, and I asked to be excused from the table. No, Mom said. You will wait until your father finishes his dinner. Yes, Mom. After Dad finished his dinner, I was allowed to go to bed. Before I was able to walk upstairs, Dad grabbed me by the arm, and he said, What do you say? The light fitting on the ceiling of the dining room flickered. I fixed the skirt of my dress and I said respectfully, I love you, Mom and Dad. Dad smiled and I could smell the drink on his bed. He replied, Good girl. Light fitting on the ceiling burned brightly and then it exploded. I gasped as Mom and Dad turned their heads around and then they slowly turned back to me. What did you do? Dad asked. I didn't do anything, I answered. How did it happen? You know how it happened. No, I don't. As I was speaking, Dad smacked me in the face. Princess approached us and she hissed at Dad, who raised his hand to her. I leapt in front of Princess and I was smacked in the face again for defending her. That is enough, Mom said, and Dad nodded his head. Go to your room. I walked upstairs and I entered my bedroom. I took off my Sunday best and I put on my white nightdress. Princess followed me into my room and again she watched me as I prepared for bed. As I lay down in bed, I remembered that I had not telephoned Michael and told him that I would not be able to attend the party with him. A wave of depressive thoughts washed over me. No one will ever want you again. With tears in my eyes. Trigger warning, there is self-harm in this story. I am so sorry that I did not double check this beforehand. So please turn this off if that makes you uncomfortable. I don't want anyone to be uncomfortable in my stream. With tears in my eyes, I closed my door and I went to my wardrobe where I retrieved a razor-bladed hand towel and a package of bandages. The blood that I shed from my forearm felt like it unencumbered my soul of some of its many sorrows. I covered the cuts with bandages and I returned all of it to my wardrobe, where I laid back down in bed and I fell asleep. On the following day, I telephoned Michael and I informed him that my parents said that I could not attend the party with him. He was disappointed, but he said that he understood. I spent most of the day in my room. No one came to check in on me, but Princess was my constant companion and she never left my side. I looked into her eyes and I said, I love you, and it seemed for a moment that she was going to respond. It must be my imagination. It was not until the following day that I emerged from my room and I ate breakfast with my parents. Your father and I will be attending a party tomorrow evening, Mom said. Where? Dr. and Mrs. Hughes are holding a party at their house. May I go to the party? No, Mom answered. You will stay at home. I felt my eyes well with tears, but I focused on the bowl of cereal before me. If I cried, I would be punished by Dad for hurting Mom's feelings, and therefore I nodded my head, and I continued to eat breakfast, forcing the cereal down with my tears. After breakfast, I decided to study for when school recommenced. I had high marks, but Mom stressed the importance of studying regardless. I stopped studying for the night to feed Princess and play with her. After I played with Princess, I prepared for bed. As I prepared for bed, I took off my clothes and a stream of blood trickled down my legs. I looked at the drops of blood on my hands and I felt the beginnings of a panic attack. I was aware that I had just experienced my first menstrual period, but I was afraid to approach Mom with this information. Nevertheless, I approached my parents' bedroom and I knocked on the door. Dad was in the shower and Mom was preparing for bed at her vanity stand. This story just took a weird turn. Yes? May I speak with you? What? Before I could say anything, Mom noticed the blood on my hands and she reached into a drawer of her vanity stand. Her eyes were impassive, but her face betrayed her revulsion toward the menstrual blood on my fingers. I wish I could do this on my own. Wear them, Mom said. She handed me a package of sanitary towels, which I took from her. Is there anything else? This is getting really weird. No, I answered, and I left my parents' bedroom. There was neither advice nor guidance nor instruction from her on what I was supposed to do. I returned to my bedroom and I gently placed a sanitary towel in my underwear and I laid down in bed and I tried to fall asleep. Was I a woman now? I did not know. Did it matter? I heard Dad shouting from my parents' bedroom and I sat up in bed. As I listened carefully, I could hear Mom and Dad speaking in their bedroom. What happened to you? Mom asked. I was in the shower, Dad answered, and the water turned to blood. What? The water turned to blood, Elizabeth. Blood? I could almost feel it trickling down my legs again. What was going on? As I laid back, I recalled a reading from the book of Exodus, which we read at St. Mary's while learning the 10 Commandments. Before Moses was able to lead the Israelites out of Egypt, God inflicted 10 plagues on the Egyptians to convince the Pharaoh to free the Israelites. The first plague was read to us by Sister Maria, who taught the catechism class. And the water of the river turned into blood, and the fishes that were in the river died, and the river corrupted, and the Egyptians could not drink the water of the river. And there was blood in all the land of Egypt. I no longer know where this is going. As I tossed and turned in bed, I could still hear Mom and Dad speaking in their bedroom, and their words leaked into my mind like ink in my hypnagogic state. It is impossible. It is possible because it just happened to me. How? I don't know, Dad answered, but I think it's her doing. I could not understand the strange happenings in my house. Were we cursed by God? Before I was able to think of another explanation, I fell asleep, and my parents' voices faded away. Or was I cursed by God? On the following day, All Hallows Eve, October 31st, 1974, I bicycled to Monmouth to buy sweets for the holiday. I bought a wide variety of sweets for me, and I also bought a treat for Princess. Although it was not as popular in the United Kingdom as it was in the United States, I loved Halloween. You could be anybody that you wanted to be, even if that meant you wanted to be nobody. As the day journeyed into night, I prepared to eat sweets while I watched television. Trick-or-treating was not common in the United Kingdom, and therefore I had to entertain myself for the night while my parents attended the party of Dr. and Mrs. Hughes. At 7:30, Mom informed me that she and Dad were leaving for the party. I hope that you have a good time, I said. Thank you, Mom replied. You can be nice when you want to be. Before she and Dad left, Mom said that they would return by midnight. It was a couple of hours later that I finished watching the programs on television in honor of Halloween, and I prepared myself for bed. I took off my clothes and I put on my white nightdress. Princess joined me in bed, and I fell asleep with her by my side. I awoke when my parents returned home near 3 a.m. Both of them sounded intoxicated, and Mom laughed as Dad talked to her. As I attempted to return to sleep, Dad called for me. I opened my eyes. Why is he calling for me? I got out of bed and I went downstairs. What's going on? Yes? Where were you? I was in bed. Why? I answered. Why? What is this? Dad asked, his hands indicating the sweet wrappers on the sofa, which I had forgotten to dispose of before I went to bed. Before I was able to answer him, his hand connected with my cheek in a painful smack. Please, I begged. I'm sorry. Not yet, Dad said. He grabbed me by the hair and he began to hit me. I remember being able to look into his blue eyes as he beat me. There was no other emotion behind them apart from unadulterated rage. The alcohol had taken everything else away. I was certain that he was finally going to kill me. And all over sweets. This is it, I thought to myself. This is how I die. As my father landed another smack on my crimson cheek, I heard Mum speaking, and Dad released my hair from his grip. There were shouts, but I could not discern the words of their argument. Mum separated Dad and me like an angel intervening in the affairs of mankind. The issue with that comparison is that Mum was not an angel. What are you doing? Mum asked. She slurred her words like Dad. Look at that mess, Dad answered. It's her doing. Did you do this, Sarah? I nodded my head, and Mum asked, why would you make such a mess? It's Halloween, I said. I don't care. Clean up your mess, Dad said as he threw me onto the floor. He approached as I attempted to stand up, and he began to kick me. Before he landed another kick, he was thrown backward into Mum as if he was pushed. Did you do that? With my eyes widened in shock, I shook my head, but he raised his hand to smack me. Dad was unable to smack me before he was thrown backward again, tripping over Mum, who fell back onto the floor. He stood up, and he unfastened his belt to beat me with it. I screamed, and all of the lights in the house burned brightly, and then they exploded. What happened? Mum and Dad looked around the darkened house before they settled their eyes on me. With a hollow laugh, Mum said, "She's a witch." Before I was able to say anything, Dad shouted, "Witch! Got Satan's power." What? You sold your soul, haven't you? Dad asked. No, I answered. It's the reason for all the strange happenings recently, Dad said. Isn't it? You've sold your soul. Was I a witch? I shook my head as Dad removed his belt, and he approached me with it in hand, and I closed my eyes. Could I be a witch without knowing it? I dreaded the thought, and I heard the cracking of bones and tearing of flesh. I am cursed by God. Mum screamed, and Dad dropped his belt onto the floor. I opened my eyes to see them looking at an adult woman standing in front of me. I could fully see the woman, illuminated by the light of the full moon. She had blonde hair and brown eyes, and she was wearing a black dress, various wings, and fingerless gloves. She was enveloped by a black shawl embroidered with flowers. She wore a necklace with a bell attached to it. Before they were able to say anything, Mom and Dad burst into flames. I was horrified as my parents fell to the floor, their flesh melting from their skeletal frames. As much as I was horrified, I was also relieved. They cannot hurt me anymore. Fire began to spread through the house, and the woman guided me upstairs to my bedroom. Who are you? I asked. She smiled as she approached me and caressed my tear-stained face, saying softly, my princess. Her voice was ethereal, raspy but graceful, and her eyes emanated love. Princess? She nodded her head, and then she embraced me with the tenderness of a mother, a sister, and a friend that I had never known heretofore. After she embraced me, she held my hands in hers. What are you? I have come to make you better, she answered, and I have come to take you away. Tears welled up in my eyes as I asked, about my parents. I have seen what they have done to you, she said. They have tried to break you. Tears welled up in my eyes as I asked, wait, wrong line. There was a brief pause before she continued. You have not let them. Your great love is a power in and of itself, and if you come with me, you can learn all of the wonders of witchcraft. You were a cat, I trailed off. Why? I knew you long before you found me in the fields of Lydart. If I was going to save you, I had to be inconspicuous. Why didn't you take me away before now? I had to be certain that this life was not for you, she answered. My friends, I trailed off. I will never see them again. You must make that sacrifice, she said. However, it is ultimately your decision. Will you come or will you stay? After a brief pause, I said tearfully, Take me. With her hand in mine, we leapt from my window, taken by the wind. It has been 45 years, and I still live in rural Wales with the witch who taught me the art of witchcraft. I am now also a white witch. Although she has not aged in appearance, I have, but I have aged at a slower rate than normal as a result of the powers with which she endowed me. You must be wondering, why is she telling her story now? The answer to that question is a less complicated one. In the form of a bird, I witnessed recently in Monmouth the abuse inflicted on an adolescent boy by his parents. I have all of it planned. I have not transformed since the light of the last full moon. The next full moon is approaching. As the boy walks through the fields of Lydart, he will find a skylark with a broken wing, which he will rescue to nurse back to health, and I will take him away. Well, that was kind of a good story, maybe? I think it was a good story. I do think it was less spooky than I was expecting, though. Like, I was kind of picturing something, you know, more scary than that. And then this was kind of just like maybe a little spooky at most. So yeah, it wasn't quite what I was thinking of. But I hope you enjoyed that stream. My next stream this week will be on Wednesday. It'll be another art stream, I think. And then on Friday, we'll be playing yet another horror game. Okay, so I do have something special coming up. But it's not going to be announced until the beginning of next month. Yeah, but I am working on it. I'm working on it with someone else. You probably can guess who already, but we are working on kind of... Okay, it's not a big thing, but it's kind of a big thing for me because I've never done this before. And we are planning on having, like, announcing it beginning of next month. And we're still ironing out a few wrinkles here and there. Yeah, I hope. Thanks for the hydrate. I really do need it. I'm almost done my entire mug of water. And yes, I am using the cancer mug. Okay. Wait, we've only been streaming for 2 hours? No way, it feels way longer than that. Thank you for making me dream weird stuff tonight. I'm sorry, that's not my intention. Okay, but I think the stories, they weren't that like spooky. It's cool. Okay, I'm glad. Yeah, I went with the ones that I thought wouldn't be like super scary or like super gross, because some of the like horror stories are kind of Like body horror. Now we'll dream with furries? No! Not the furries! Yeah, I think for tonight I'm gonna drop you guys off on my friend's stream. Their name is Show and they are new to VTubing. I believe this is their second stream. Yeah. So they're playing Genshin and we can give them a little surprise, you know, welcome them to the life of being a VTuber. Oh wait. Wait, what did I do? Oh, okay. There, I fixed it. Yeah. I hope you guys join me in saying hi to them. And I will see you guys on Wednesday. Have a good night. Thank you so much for coming and hope you have a good sleep tonight. Oh my gosh, they're gonna earn our request. They're actually, oh my god. So Show, who we're rating, is also playing Genshin. So y'all can suffer together. Okay. Night. Night. You're stuck in a glitch.